Welcome back, friends. So in this video we are going to discuss about respiratory system. Let's go into the session. So in the last session I have discussed you about the aerobic as well as anaerobic respiration. So the link I have given in the description. If you have not watched that, you can click the link and you can watch that respiration session. Yeah, what do you mean by aerobic and anaerobic? Anaerobic means in the absence of oxygen, whereas aerobic means the presence of oxygen. You can see the in this place I have mentioned. See here, oxygen. So what do you mean glucose? So glucose will be utilized from the food we are taking, that is nutrition. For example, if you are taking carbohydrate, so after going into digestive system, it will be completely digested and will be converted into glucose molecule. This glucose will be absorbed by our blood capillaries from the small intestine and through the blood that will be supplied to all parts of the body and all the cells. So after reaching the cells in the cytoplasm, so it will be converted and then it will be entering into the mitochondria. So in mitochondria only what happens, with the help of the oxygen, in the combination with oxygen, that glucose will be converted into energy molecule. You can see here energy will be produced. So all the cells will be producing carbon dioxide. You can see here carbon dioxide will be produced as well as energy also will be released. So oxygen is utilized in this case, whereas carbon dioxide is released in the cells. So carbon dioxide has to be eliminated from our cells. Suppose if it is accumulated in the cells, that will be dangerous for the cells. That leads to the death of the cell. So the oxygen should be taken inside, whereas the carbon dioxide should be eliminated out of the cell. So how it happens? Through respiration. So let's see how this process is happening. You can see here in case of plants what happens. For example, you can see this also I have discussed in the previous session. So in the nutrition plants, so in that case what happens, the stomata will be helping in the exchange of gases. So you can see here the God cells will be there in the epidermis, that is lower epidermis. In the plants you can see here the God cells. See, the God cells are there. The lower epidermis of the leaf will be having the stomatal pore. The stomatal pore opening and closing will be guarded, that will be helped by the God cells. The upper epidermis will be there, and the inner, the palisade and spongy and all the cells will be there. You can see here clearly the gas which is exchanged from the outer environment will be in contact with all the cells. How it is possible? You can see here the inner cellular spaces here and here. You can see here intercellular spaces, that is the space between the each cell. So what happens? So if you take this cell, you can see here, so all the direction, the each and every cell you can see that will be in contact with the air which is taken inside. So in the case of plants what happens, the gases will be, that is oxygen as well as carbon dioxide will be happening. What happens now, all the cells will be in contact with the air, whereas in higher animals it is not possible. In the case of plants, so each and every cell, maximum number of cells will be exposed, that is in contact with the air directly. So through simple diffusion, what by diffusion, you can see, imagine this as a plant cell. For example, you can imagine this as a plant cell. So cell wall and cell membrane, everything will be there. Simply I am drawing a structure here. So what happens from the atmosphere, because imagine this is the intercellular space. So this is the one cell and this is another cell. So on here one cell will be there and here around cells will be there. So intercellular spaces will be there. So when the gas or air they enter inside, see here, in all the directions you can see the gases are entering. So all the cells will be exposed in all the directions. Some cases, some spaces will be exposed. So what happens? Through diffusion. Diffusion means, you can see here, so in and out through the cell wall and the cell membrane. Through simple diffusion, the movement of the molecules, gaseous molecules will be taking place through simple diffusion. So this is in the case of plants. There is no specific organ like lungs in the case of humans. And plants will be having what? Through simple diffusion only, the exchange of gases will be taking place. So if you go to the next slide, you can see here, during night what will happen? During night time, the photosynthesis will not occur because the photo means light. In the absence of light, the photosynthesis will not take place. In this case, what happens? The respiration will occur. So when the respiration occurs, what happens? See here, the oxygen will be taken inside. That is, aerobic respiration takes place in plants also. So what happens? The maximum elimination of carbon dioxide will be taking place during the night time. So this is during night time. When it comes to the daytime, you can see here, you can clearly see it is opposite, because in the presence of light, the carbon dioxide will be taken inside, whereas the oxygen will be released outside. So this is opposite to the night. During the daytime, what happens? Photosynthesis will be taking place. So as a result of photosynthesis only the food will be produced, so in which the heterotrophic organisms depends on. So this is what happens in plants. In the case of plants, so the gas exchange will be through simple diffusion. So that here, and if you go to the other animals, you can see here, so many animals, what happens, different organs will be there. It will not be similar in all the cases. So based upon their like level of organization, based upon their condition of living, their environmental conditions, the the respiratory system will vary actually. The organ which is involving in the respiration will be different. You can see here in the case of spider, so it is a book lung. It looks like a book, so it is called as book lung. So in the case of you can see here sponges. In sponges, what happens? You will be having small pores will be there. You can see inflow they mentioned here, right? Inflow means small pores will be throughout their body. You'll be having what? Small pores like this. You'll be having small pores will be there. So through these pores, what happens? The oxygen will be taken inside, and you can see outflow. Here will be opening, so this outflow will be happening here. So inhalation, exhalation will be taking place through this way in the sponges. When you go to the caterpillars, you can see the black dots here. They are called as spiracles or spiracles. So they are small openings. Through these openings only there will be exchange of gases will be taking place. You can see in each segment will be having spiracle, and through this spiracle only the exchange of gases will be taking place. Then if you go to the aquatic as well as terrestrial organisms, this is aquatic and this is terrestrial organism. In case of aquatic organisms, gills will be helping. In case of chicken, that is terrestrial organism, lungs will be helping. So the total idea here is different organisms have different kinds of this respiratory organ based upon their living condition, based on the level of organization. If you go to the next slide, you can see the aquatic as well as terrestrial organism, the rate of breathing also varies. Why? Means you can see here the amount of dissolved oxygen. What do you mean amount of dissolved oxygen? In the case of terrestrial animals, where you will be taking the oxygen essential for the respiration will be taken from the atmosphere. So we have enormous amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. Whereas in the case of aquatic organisms, so they will be living in the water, so they cannot take oxygen from the atmosphere. What happens? Oxygen will be dissolved in water. So the dissolved oxygen only the organisms has to be taken. Okay. So in this case, when compared to the atmosphere, the oxygen present in the water in dissolved form will be less. So in this case, what happens? Aquatic animals, the breathing rate will be more when compared. That faster, it will be faster when compared to the terrestrial organisms. This is the reason, because they have less amount of oxygen. If they breathe very slowly, what happens? They cannot survive. So they have to breathe very faster. Then only they can be taking more amount of sufficient amount of oxygen will be taking inside for respiration process. Next, you can see here. I have shown the fish. You can see here. So through the mouth, what happens? The dissolved oxygen will be present in the water. So what happens here? Through the mouth, you can see. through mouth they'll be taking the water, and this water will be reaching the gill region. So the gills will be supplied with enormous amount of blood capillaries. So through these capillaries, what happens, the dissolved oxygen will be absorbed by this capillaries, and it will be transported through the blood through all parts of the body, and the water will be coming outside through this gill opening. So here you can see the inlet of water and outlet of water will be taking place through the mouth and the gills will be supplied with what you can see here. You can clearly see, you can see the gills will be supplied with enormous amount of blood capillaries. So this capillaries, what they will do, here you can see this is the capillary. So these are only capillaries. You can see blood capillaries. The red color is oxygenated blood, blue color is deoxygenated blood. So what happens, when water comes in, this oxygenated blood will be taking this oxygen from, okay, so deoxygenated blood will be coming from where, the tissues, the cells. So they will be receiving the oxygen through this water where it is dissolved, and it will be converted into oxygenated blood and will be transported to the body. Again what happens, from the tissues going to the gills. So this process will be going on like this. So this is in the case of aquatic organisms. Okay, if you go to the next, the terrestrial organisms, what will happen, you can see here, terrestrial organisms use oxygen in the atmosphere. As I already said, it will be present in atmosphere. So here you can see the main thing is the organ. So these organs will not be present outside the body, it will be present inside the body. Why? Means these structures will be very fine and delicate. You can see here, these structures will be very fine and delicate. So if it is present outside the body, it can be easily damaged. So it should be protected from the outside environment, because it is very fine and delicate. Because through this surface only what happens, the exchange of gases, that is carbon dioxide as well as oxygen, will be taking place. So it has to be protected. So this is the reason why these organs are placed inside the body. So when it is placed inside the body, it is completely protected. That is the reason why the organs are placed inside the body. And if you see here, you can see the surface area increases. Yeah, why the surface area should be more means, when the surface area is more, the contact with oxygen rich atmosphere also will be more. So more amount of oxygen can be taken in. Suppose if the surface area is very less, what will happen? The contact with oxygen rich atmosphere also will be very less. So less amount of oxygen will be taken inside. So respiration will not be performed in the perfect way. So the surface area is in much greater area. So increase in surface area will be there in these organs. So these will be usually placed inside the body. So you may have one question now, how this organ will be receiving air from outside environment? In case of plants, so all the cells will be having what? They will be in contact with the air. So easily through diffusion will be occurring. Whereas here what happens, the passages, the pathway will be there from where the oxygen will be taken from outside environment. So through these passages, that air will be reaching the organ which is placed inside the organism. We can see how the passage will be. You can see here. So this is the, in case of humans, you can see through the nostrils, through the nose, the air will be the blue. You can see here through the nostrils. Through the nostrils, what happens? The air will be entering inside, and the nasal cavity will be there, and then through the pharynx. So what is pharynx? So pharynx is the common passage for food as well as air through the oral cavity. This is the mouth cavity. You can see through the mouth the food will be coming, through the nostrils, the nasal cavity, the air will be coming. So pharynx is the common passage for both food and air. So after reaching the pharynx, you can see here the air will be entering the larynx. So what will be larynx? The larynx is the voice box that is responsible for the voice which is created, which is producing in your mouth. Okay, the larynx is called as voice box. So after the larynx, it reaches trachea. You can see here the pipe-like structure. You can see the trachea. So trachea is called as windpipe. So it is a cartilaginous because it can be avoided. The collapse of the air will be not there. So the design will be structure will be in that way only. I will be discussing now. So after then it will be going to the we can see here the trachea will be divided into two branches. Yes, these two branches are called as bronchi or branches, and then minute branches we can see in this side. Minute branches, many branches will be going, they are called as bronchioles. So branches will be there and bronchioles will be there. At the end of the bronchioles you will be having balloon like structure. You can see here in the end of the bronchioles you can be having balloon like structures will be there. These structures are called as alveoli. So alveoli will be, this is the passage of the air. So this is the organ, you can see the lungs. The lungs are the respiratory organs which is fine and delicate, so it is present inside the body. So this lungs need air. Okay, it needs what? The exchange of gas should be taking place, so it needs air. From the outside the body only it has to reach there. Through which way it will be reaching means through this pathway only it will be reaching. From here to here it will be reaching like this. You can see here upper respiratory tract, lower respiratory tract are there. So this from nasal cavity to the larynx it is called as upper respiratory tract. You can see here from here to here it is called as upper respiratory tract, whereas from trachea to this lungs it is called as lower respiratory tract. Okay, so this is the passage of the air taking place. Now going to the next slide, you can see here as I already said, in the nasal cavity you will be having what? You will be having mucus, and also you will be having what? Fine hairs will be there. So what is the use of these fine hairs as well as this mucus? These fine hairs will be trapping the dust as well as microorganisms from the air. So pathogens will be protected from entering inside. And also this mucus also will be helping in that. In the mucus will be trapping the microorganisms, and also the dust will be going attached to the mucus, so that the respiration will not be affected. Because in some cases the pollution, because of the pollution, what happens? More amount of dust will be entering inside your nose through the air, that will be trapped by these fine hairs and mucus in the nostrils. And also this mucus will be providing the, suppose in the case the air which is you are taking from the outside environment may be cold, when it is entering into the nostrils it will be converted into warm air, so that is suitable to our body temperature where the respiration is taking place. So mucus also helps in maintaining the that moisture nature is there, right? The air which we are taking, the temperature will be adjusted according to the homeostasis we will be telling, so that it will be done by this mucus. And then next, if you see, as I already said, you can see the air passes through throat, lungs, and the rings of cartilage. I said right that it will not collapse. You can see it will not be collapse. So that is why rings of cartilage. Only rings of cartilage. I said right. You can see the structure. You can see it will be looking like rings. So many rings are there, right? This is called as rings of cartilage. So it will be like in the wash basin you will be having some disposal tubes, plastic tubes will be there in your kitchen, right? Or in wash basins will be having similar to that. So the collapse will be prevented. That is the reason why it is in rings of cartilage, that structure. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see I said right, alveoli. So alveoli is a balloon like structure, that is the end of the bronchioles. You can see the structure. So that is a bronchiole. You can see some bronchioles. Yeah, you can see here. See the bronchioles are coming from here, and many bronchi and many bronchioles will be there, and the end will be having what? Balloon like structures. So these balloon like structures are called as alveoli. Okay, so what is the purpose of this alveoli? So alveoli plays major role here, because in alveoli only exchange of gases, this carbon dioxide as well as oxygen will be taking place. You can see this side. See, this is deoxygenated blood and this is oxygenated blood flow. So pulmonary artery as well as pulmonary vein is there. So pulmonary artery, what it will do, that will be bringing the deoxygenated blood. So this will be bringing the deoxygenated blood from the tissues to the lungs, and from here what happens, this pulmonary vein will be carrying the oxygenated blood from lungs to the heart. So this will be taking place to heart and to other tissues. This is what happening here. So all the balloon like structure here, right? You can see numerous like network of, you can see here the network of like capillaries will be there. Through these blood capillaries only the exchange of gases will be taking place. So alveoli plays major role in the exchange of gases. So after reaching the lungs, the bronchioles, the end of the bronchioles is balloon-like structure. It is supplied with numerous blood capillaries. Through these capillaries only exchange of gases will be taking place. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see, yeah, when you breathe in and breathe out, two different changes you can easily observe. You can see that from the diagram, when you are taking in, drawn in the air, you can see when you are taking in the air, see, taking the air, the lungs, what happens? You will be breathing in. You will be breathing in as well as breathing out. Through breathing, what happens? The diaphragm moves down. That means what? Contraction. The contraction of diaphragm will be taking place. So what happens? You can see in the relaxed position, you can see the diaphragm in the relaxed position, that is, you can see, so this is the diaphragm, like this it will have. What happens? It will contract and moves downwards. It moves downwards, so it will be like this. See here, it will be like this. So the diaphragm contracts, and then what happens? So this will be moving outside. That's why the level of the chest will be increasing. Again it will be going backside when you are breathing out. Okay, when you're breathing in, what happens? The diaphragm will be contracting as well as moving downwards, and that cavity, thoracic cavity is there, right? The thoracic cavity will be increasing. The size of the volume of the thoracic cavity increases. So what happens? Automatically the air will be coming from outside and fills the lungs. Again what happens when you are pushing out? Again the diaphragm relaxes back to the original position. The volume of the thoracic cavity will be reduced. The air will be forced outside through your nostrils. So this is how the air will be taking in and air will be going outside. If you see this diagram, you will be understanding more clearly. Yeah, you can see here, when you are breathing in, you can see the diaphragm structure here. So this is the normal diaphragm, that is relaxed state, whereas here it is contracted. Contracted, in this case what happens? It moves downwards. Give the arrow mark, it moves downwards, and then the size of the thoracic cavity increases here, and it moves in the front. You can see the ribs. The ribs will be having the intercostal muscles will be there between the rib. Here you will be having the muscles. So these muscles will be going in front. Okay, what happens? They will be moving forward. So your chest will be expanding. You can hear chest expand because of this only, because it will be moving in this direction. So diaphragm will be moving in the downwards direction. It is in the case of breathing in. When you are breathing out, what happens? Again the diaphragm will be going to the normal position, this relaxed state. Again the ribs will be going back, and the rib cages as well as the chest contracts, relaxes. You can see the dotted line here. This dotted line is there, right? This dotted line, it measures what? When you are breathing out, it will be normal. When you are breathing in, again it reaches the dotted line in this direction. So this is how the breathing in, breathing out will be taking place. And then coming into this, you can see here, I said already, many capillaries will be there present in the alveoli. So the exchange of gases will be taking place in this location only. We can see here clearly. Yeah, you can see the carbon dioxide will be released from the blood into the alveoli, and oxygen will be taken from the alveoli to the blood vessel. So it will be going to the tissues, it will be coming from the tissues. So this is what happening here. You can more clearly see here in this picture. Yeah, you can see here blood capillaries will be coming from the body. So oxygen will be released from the lungs, which you are breathing in, right? While breathing in, the lungs will be receiving oxygen from the atmosphere. Oxygen will be entering the blood capillaries through the alveoli, as well as the carbon dioxide will be entering in the like alveolar region of the lungs, which has to be exhaled through this process will be taking place. The next thing, during breathing cycle, what happens? Always you should remember this residual volume. Remember, residual volume means always your lungs will be having some certain amount of volume of air will be there. Completely all the air will not be coming outside. It will be having some residual amount volume of air. So in this case, when you breathe in, extra amount of air is going inside. When you breathe outside, extra amount of the air will be coming outside. Some residual like reserve you have in your vehicles, the reserve value will be for their your like petrol or diesel is there, means the reserve volume will be there. Here also the residual volume will be there, so that the oxygen is to be absorbed, right? So no problem will be there. Sufficient time is there for the lungs to take the oxygen in as well as the removal of carbon dioxide outside. So this residual volume, it is somewhat you have to discuss very detailedly, then you will be understanding. I will be discussing in some other session. So always when you are breathing and breathing out, completely the air will not come out, completely the air will not go inside. Okay, what happens, some residual volume will be present inside your lungs, so that what happens, the sufficient time will be there. So during breathing and breathing out, there will be sufficient time, so that easily the oxygen and carbon dioxide can be released. So residual volume will be always there. Okay, and in the case of larger animals, I discussed in case of plants, you can see, so all the cells will be in contact with the oxygen atmosphere. So what happens, simple diffusion is enough. For what is simple diffusion, from cell to cell contact like this will be having. So from here this still we will be having, here all the cells will be having and going inside outside, so diffusion will be happening like this. Whereas in higher animals like humans, this is not at all possible. If the simple diffusion takes place, what happens, it takes many years to reach from the head to, from the lungs to the your leg. Okay, it will take many years through simple diffusion, means it is not at all possible in the higher organisms, because all the body parts are not exposed to air. In this case, through the lungs, through the blood capillaries only, the oxygen can be delivered to the body parts. So this is why in higher animals we have specialized organs. So we have specialized like respiratory pigments are there. You can see here respiratory pigments. If you see here, you can see the respiratory pigments will be there. They will be carrying the oxygen. In the case of humans, the respiratory pigments are called as hemoglobins. So these hemoglobins are present in the red blood cells. These red blood cells will be having what? This hemoglobin. This hemoglobin only carries oxygen to all parts of the body. So this hemoglobin has higher affinity towards the oxygen. So only the oxygen will be easily trapped by this hemoglobin and this will be transported. So with the help of this pigment only, what happens, it will, all the parts of the body tissues, all the cells will be receiving oxygen with the help of hemoglobin. If the hemoglobin content is very less, it leads to anemia. So anemic patients will be there. In those conditions, they will be having less amount of hemoglobin. So if you take more amount of iron content in your food, the hemoglobin content will be increasing in your blood, so that sufficient amount of oxygen will be getting by all the cells. So respiration will be taking place perfectly. So how the carbon dioxide will be released? So carbon dioxide will be released in the form of dissolved form, and a few amount will be dissolved in plasma and few will be in these red blood cells also. This hemoglobin will be attaching, but the affinity is very less. You can see here this diagram, you can clearly see. So from the tissues you can see. So here what happens, from the red blood cells, that is, you can see here the hemoglobin oxygen combination. Okay, oxyhemoglobin. So the hemoglobin attaches the oxygen from the lungs and it comes to the tissues and releases the oxygen into the cells for respiration. As a result of respiration, what will happen, the products will be carbon dioxide, water and energy. So this carbon dioxide has to be eliminated from the body, I said, right? So this carbon dioxide, again what happens, it will be reaching the blood and it will dissolved form. You can see in plasma it will be dissolved form and it will be in the form of bicarbonates. You can see here H3CO3 minus in bicarbonate, and this will be done by the help of the enzyme called as carbonic anhydrase. In the carbonic anhydrase, what happens, this carbonates will convert it into bicarbonates and this will be mixed with the blood. Okay, and this will be transported again to the lungs. Now after going to the lungs, what happens, you can see here, after going to the lungs, this carbon dioxide, right, this bicarbonate, you can see here, this bicarbonate again it will be converted into carbon dioxide and water, and this carbon dioxide will be released in the alveoli of the lungs. So this is released. Now what happens? Again this blood cell will be receiving oxygen from the lungs, and the oxygen will be going and combining with the hemoglobin. So this hemoglobin will be taking this oxygen, again it will be going to the tissues. This is how it is taking place. Once again I will show you here. You can see here, from the tissues oxygen will be getting in and carbon dioxide will be released, whereas here you can see in lungs the carbon dioxide will be released, the oxygen will be taken by the blood cells. So this is what happens in the exchange of gases within the tissues and the blood cells and the lungs. So this is how the process of that respiration is taking place. The respiratory system is working. Okay, now this is the overall respiratory process. So the diagram given in your NCERT book. So this is how from the nasal passage through the pharynx, larynx, it enters the trachea region, and from the trachea it reaches the bronchi and bronchioles, and alveoli region will be there, and from the alveoli what happens, the blood capillaries will be receiving the oxygen and going to the tissues, and from the tissues it receives the carbon dioxide, and again it transported to the lungs, which has to be exhaled. So this is the overall process of human respiratory system. So let's meet in the next session. Thank you friends, thank you for watching this video.